I froze with my hand still around my drink. She added, I understand if you want to leave because I have 2 kids. The sounds of the Dallas steakhouse hummed low. Even on our first date, she was giving me the finger. Her eyes were not as casual as her tone. Their lashes stared at the candle between us, not even daring to blink. It appeared to belong to a different night and a different couple, even if her comment about the overdone fries from a few seconds earlier was still there. I apologize, what? I asked, even though I had heard everything. Finally, she looked up at me. Her name was Jenna. Dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, a simple blue suit, and almost no makeup. You felt as though you were looking at a real person instead of their Instagram persona because of her innate beauty. She repeated, I have 2 children, a bit softer. A 7-year-old boy and a 5-year-old daughter. And I know that's true for a lot of men. She made a tiny flipping gesture with her hand, like she was tossing something off a table. Deal breaker. I swallowed, feeling as though my throat had suddenly become dry. I took a sip of water to buy myself a few seconds. We'd linked on a dating app 2 weeks before. 3 blurry pictures of her appeared on her profile, one at a baseball game, one at an Austin street fair, and one while hiking. The photos don't feature any kids. It isn't mentioned in the bio. To put it simply, take pleasure in coffee, road trips, and self-satisfied individuals. You didn't say anything about kids in your profile. I said this without coming across as accusing. Her shoulders dropped a little. I know. I did once. You'll be amazed at how quickly the messages disappear when the second line, I'm a mom of 2, appears. I became tired of men treating me like I wasn't a perfect example of what they really wanted. I could see that her fingers were shaking slightly when she grabbed for her wine glass and set it down without taking a sip. I almost responded, taking my daughter to a princess birthday party, but my lips kind of freaked out when you asked what I was doing the next weekend. This was meant to be discussed later, she said, referring to a 3rd date or after dessert, anyway. She smiled without amusement. I leaned back in my seat, my mind moving faster than my face could show. We had talked about terrible movies from the 1990s, Texas barbecue spots, and our mutual dislike of slow walkers at Target. Jenna had been amusing on the app. Sharp. She seemed grounded, which I liked. She didn't text like a gamer, but rather like a regular person. Nevertheless, kids? 2 kids? So that explains why you're late? She apologized after arriving 10 minutes past our reservation, a little out of breath, and I inquired before I could stop myself. It's actually a whole thing. She nodded. My mother got caught in traffic. I'm going to watch them tonight. Ava shook her head, trying to look serious, but a small smile tugged at her lips. I swear, I'm not that crazy most of the time. Ava said she suddenly hated dinosaurs after Eli insisted on wearing his dinosaur pajamas to bed. The image flashed into my head before I wanted it to. Her in a little Dallas apartment, arguing about dinosaurs and bedtime stories while trying to coax 2 young children into pajamas. That wasn't some distant, speculative future. That was her right now. We finish our breakfast, and you swear not to text me again. I've done it to guys before. It's easier than the awkward sympathy that looms over the meal, she added. I should have told you earlier. Listen, I totally understand if this is too much, too quick, or not what you signed up for. She said the words as if she had practiced them, as if she had had to provide herself with an escape route in the first place. I felt a knot in my chest. I thought about my own profile. I'm a 31-year-old software engineer who lives in Dallas, loves Sunday brunch, podcasts, and hoops, has no kids, and has never married. I was used to thinking of my weekends as being mine, used to my own mess, my own dishes, my own schedule, and the peace and quiet of my apartment. 2 kids didn't seem well in the picture. So what do you think I'll say? I asked quietly. I don't want you to say anything you don't mean. You seem like a good man, Mark. You were on time. You haven't interrupted me once, and you seem to be listening when you laugh. You don't have to save my life or sign me up for stepdad boot camp just yet. I just want you to know who I really am before you decide to continue knowing me. We both mumbled that everything was fine, and as soon as he departed, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The waitress, who was clearly aware of the solemn tone, went by to ask how things were doing and yet managed to grin. I said, "You have my liking," and the words felt big as I said them. I liked someone from an app much more than I expected. Well, I'm processing. She nodded. That's reasonable. When did you become a mom? I said, and despite the awkwardness of the voice, she didn't flinch. I had Eli a year later, and she said, I got married at 24. Ava 2 years later. My ex-husband and I split up 2 years ago. He lives in Houston currently. He sees them once a month if he doesn't cancel. At the moment, he is very interested in self-discovery. Her expression tightened as she created air quotes, a mix of anger and disappointment. Damn, I said. Yes, she said. So it's mostly myself, them, and my mom. And my small circle of friends who get FaceTime calls when I'm trying not to cry over laundry. When I tried to imagine dating in that situation, all of my grievances about being ghosted after 3 texts sounded trivial. She responded, You're quiet. That usually means a man is preparing his farewell speech in his mind. I was drawn to the small scar by her left eyebrow, the way she kept pushing her thumb over the edge of her napkin, and the purposeful rigidity of her posture, as though she had learned to be independent. I feel like this isn't on my typical first date checklist, I remarked. Usually, I just try to determine whether someone is genuinely flat-earther and whether they look like their photos. This time, her laughter was sudden and brilliant. The tension surrounding the table eased a bit. And do I pass the not secretly a flat-earther test? She asked. So far, yes, was my response. But I still need to see how you feel about pizza with pineapple. She shook her head. It is a crime, with all due respect. Whoa, I cried out. You hold opinions. Mark, I have kids. With the baby socks, opinions are free to flow, she remarked with a smile. We both smiled, but my smile was more than that. One question remained. Can I accomplish this? Could I be with someone who already had a busy and complicated life, an ex in Houston, bedtime stories, and school pickups? Could I end a date with a woman who had just displayed her most vulnerable side to me? I need to be honest with you too, because this is a great deal. I've never dated someone who had kids, I added, feeling my pulse in my neck. Her jaw tightened a little bit. All right, she reported. All right. As I opened my mouth, the weight of what I was about to say hung between us like a second candle. As my phone buzzed on the table, a name that I had never anticipated seeing at that very time flashed on the screen. When I saw the name on my screen, my stomach fell. Dad, 3 months have passed since our last conversation. Jenna looked from me to the phone and back again. You can take it if you need to, she added. My first instinct was to hit decline and like it had never happened. For weeks, I had been doing that with him. But he didn't call twice. If he was calling at 8 p.m. on a Friday, something was amiss. The words, I apologize, I muttered. Just a moment. I swiped to answer, and as I turned slightly from the table, I caught a glimpse of Jenna's eyes from the corner of my eye as she looked down at her folded hands. Hey, I said. Mark, my dad's voice sounded older and thinner. Are you busy? I said, out. Is everything all right? He exhaled deeply. Yes. I mean, most of the time. Just while I was at the house, I found some of your mother's old possessions. I thought you would want to come over and discuss it with me. Before me, you understand. Spread some of it out. My throat tightened. Mom had been dead for a year. Heart attack. Not a caution. One morning she texted me about a new meal she had tried, and that same evening my dad called from the hospital to tell me, she's gone. Now, I questioned, my voice sounding harsher than I intended. No, he whispered quickly. Not right now. I just don't know how to do this alone, kid. Besides, your number has been going to voicemail, so I thought I'd try again. Anyway, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm sure you're out on a date or something. Mom had joked about wanting grandchildren a lot, and at family dinners she would nuzzle my arm and whisper, don't mess it up if she makes you laugh. I closed my eyes for a moment. He would assume that, of course. I looked back at Jenna, and although she was pretending not to hear, her face softened as if she could feel the weight of the call without understanding the words. I gently said, I'm going on a date. But, okay, I'll drop by this weekend, Saturday afternoon? A beat of silence on the line, followed by yes. That would be pleasant. He cracked his voice a little. Thank you, Mark. All okay, talk to you shortly. I hung up and put the phone face down next to my plate, feeling as if too many things were trying to fill my chest at once. I apologize, I acknowledged. Avoid being, replied Jenna. How are you? My dad has been trying to keep the house clean, and I was astonished when I just said, my mom passed away last year. I didn't plan to tell you that today. He has trouble letting go of things. Her countenance shifted, and she dropped her shields. I apologize so much, she responded. My father died when I was 13. It is, indeed. It sticks to everything, doesn't it? I nodded. Yes, it does indeed. After the din from the steakhouse died down, it was just the two of us sitting there with our ghosts for a bit. My mother, a father, her children, and a house full of memories. She muttered, now I feel bad for dropping the I have 2 kids bomb on top of that. I shook my head. Don't. I swear to you. I'd much rather know the truth than spend the night pretending that neither of us is really typical. She was smiling, but it was a weak, tired smile. All right, she answered. But you still have to give me an honest response. It's not a grief discount. I let out a breath and forced myself to stop thinking about it. Really? I inquired. I'm afraid. Her calm eyes met me. What? Me? The kids? The ex-boyfriend from Houston who posts motivational quotes on Instagram while I pay for daycare? I laughed even though I still had a knot in my chest. Everything, I answered. I've never kept a plant alive for more than 6 months. The idea of going into a universe where you're already this entire planet to 2 innocent people seems bigger than anything I've ever done. That's reasonable, she said. I don't think anyone will just go right into that. It's large. Really, it's my entire life. Why are you dating then? She stayed composed, but I was afraid my question sounded rude. After circling the rim of her glass with her finger, she paused to think. In response, she finally said, because I want to remember I'm a person too. Not just mom. Not just the person who makes lunches, fills out permission forms, and tries to act like she's not lonely when the kids go to bed by 8 o'clock. She shrugged. Some evenings, I would rather talk about movies and terrible coffee than Paw Patrol, not because they need me to find their lost sock, but because they want someone to ask me about my day. I had more of that than I had expected. And the kids? I asked, do they know about your relationship? Her smile deepened. Eli knows that sometimes I go out with grown-ups. Ava thinks I'm going to princess meetings. They don't meet. I keep men away from them. I haven't reached that level yet. She paused. And I'm not sure when I'll. I looked down at my steak, almost touching it. The flame between us flickered as though it was uncertain which direction the night was going. All right, was my response. So let's say that I stay. She blinked. All right. I went on. I'm not saying I'm ready to meet your kids or leap into some instant family situation. I'm not, I said. But I like talking to you. I like your perspective, and I feel like I'll regret leaving because this is going to be difficult. That's not something you owe me, she said quietly, lowering her shoulders an inch. I understand, I said, and that's why it feels real. She sat back and observed me as though she were seeing a sudden shift in who I was. What does not leaving mean to you? She said. I think we'll text a lot after the kids go to bed, and if I can buy my mom cheesecake, we might go on a date once or twice a week. My response was, that sounds feasible. I'm already skilled at sending late-night texts. It comes with working as a software developer. Her lips curled. Oh, I see. The mysterious world of code. According to my child, people like you work all day making video games. He's not totally wrong, I said. I do occasionally. Her eyes glowed. He will never stop asking you questions if you ever tell him that. I could relate to her when she said, if you ever tell him, as though she had accidentally let the thought slip out. Are you certain I'll run into him? I asked quietly. She was honest when she said, pausing as though she realized what she had indicated. I've never made that much progress with anyone since the divorce, but I'm also not here for casual. I don't have the energy to play games. Well, I replied, because I'm not very good at games. In jest, she said, that's a bold confession in Texas. The server came back to ask about dessert, and Jenna seemed to be trying something new. Do you like cheesecake? She asked. I said, I think cheesecake exists, very strongly. She remarked to the server, please give me 2 slices of the New York cheesecake. One plain, one with strawberries. Her laughter caused some of the gravity to break. As she walked away, the server turned to face me and said, you know, you still haven't responded to the actual question. Which one? I asked. Do you really want to continue getting to know me? Or are you just trying to avoid looking like the villain by leaving after finishing your steak? She looked straight ahead, almost too straight. After all, my life is made up of car seats, Legos, and sudden fevers at 3 in the morning. I was surprised at how honest that was. She was giving me another way out, but this time she was also asking me to be honest. I swallowed. I don't know what I'm capable of yet. I spoke carefully, unsure if I would be excellent at any of those things. I know I don't want to see you again, though. She spent a long time staring into my eyes. Then she nodded, more to herself than to me. All right, she reported. Well then, proceed cautiously. You are welcome to ask me anything. Not even a filter. Don't pretend it's easy. I added. And you ask me anything too. Despite the discomfort. She smiled. Oh, don't worry. I already have questions. Like what? With a head tilt, she answered. Like why you haven't asked what my kids' names are yet. I felt bad. You're right, I said. That should have been the first thing to happen. This week, Ava wants to be a unicorn and Eli wants to be a paleontologist, both of which I think sound amazing. She smiled softly and introduced them as Eli and Ava. I smiled as I practiced the names in my head like new shoes. Eli. Ava. I whispered to myself, hello, Eli. And then, hello, Ava. Jenna said, they'd like you, but I hadn't noticed her eyes relaxing all night. You exercise caution. Wary, she said, very few people do that. You think before you speak. We both laughed at how big the slices of cheesecake were when it arrived, but I could feel that something had changed beneath the friendly conversation. The night had become more than just a first date. It was a fork in the path. I also had no idea that the real test of my just promised deeds would come far sooner than I had thought. 3 weeks later, I was standing in the Target toy department, holding a plastic T-Rex in one hand and a glittering unicorn headband in the other, wondering how my life had turned out this way. My phone buzzed in my pocket for the third time in a row. Jen. Hi, I said. Mark, I'm sorry for calling you like this, but I really need help, she said in a tight, hurried voice. My heart jumped up and down my throat. Are you all right? I'm all right, she said without hesitation. The kids are doing pretty well. Ava is crying uncontrollably right now after tearing her favorite unicorn headband in half. I promised to fix it, but then my mom got caught up in her own doctor's appointment. My car battery died in the parking lot at work, and Eli needs a dinosaur shirt for tomorrow's class field trip. No dinosaur shirt or dinosaur jammies, as there seems to be a social hierarchy in second grade these days. She took an anxious breath. I apologize, she said again, but this isn't a real emergency. You're probably busy. Forget it, that's all. I couldn't help but smile as I looked down at the dinosaur toy and unicorn headpiece I was holding. When I said, I will make a guess, unicorn problem and dinosaur shirt? For a moment, there was silence. What? I said, I've arrived at Target, in the aisle of toys. I've already purchased a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a unicorn hat. Later, I was going to drop them up at your place to surprise them. She stopped talking and then produced a strange sound that sounded like half laughter and half something else. Are you serious? 100, I said. I'll get you Eli's shirt size if you text me, and you can pay me back with Venmo, cheesecake, or another way. You are, she said. Then she stopped herself, saying, you don't realize the significance of this to a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. To be honest, I kind of do, I replied. The second grade is harsh. He's a size 8, and she likes anything that looks like a unicorn explosion, so she laughed again, but more quietly. All right, she whispered. I got it. I'll drop everything off tonight, I said. Actually, I was going to ask if I could stop in any way. My dad postponed the housekeeping until Sunday. There was a brief delay in the line. I sensed that we were getting closer and closer to that border. All right, was her quiet response. Please come over. But are you sure you're ready to meet them? My chest tightened. It was this. We would talk on the phone and chat late at night about the same thing twice a week after the kids went to bed. I'm not sure if ready is the appropriate word, I uttered. But I'd like to. Another pause, then a gentle, okay. Yes, then. Come on over. She lived in a quiet suburb just outside of Dallas, and in the middle of her apartment complex, which was made up of 2-story buildings with small balconies, was a playground with a plastic slide and a shabby bench. I parked and then sat for a while looking at the Target bag in the passenger seat. I had no choice but to insert the plastic tee, unicorn headband, dinosaur shirt, and Rex. My hands were actually sweating. This was just a visit, I told myself. You are not signing adoption documents. You're carrying a shirt. Even so, my legs felt weird as I climbed the steps to her residence. Apartment 204. A pink children's scooter leaned against the wall outside the door. Tiny shoes were lining the mat. This was Jenna's real life, not the romantic dinner. I knocked. I heard a high-pitched voice yelling, "He's here! He's here!" as tiny footsteps thundered. "Eli, slow down. You're going to slip," Jenna yells. The door swung open. Jenna had never looked prettier, standing there in a huge gray t-shirt and leggings, her hair in an unkempt bun and no makeup, with a stripe of what looked like marker or ketchup on her arm. A little out of breath, she said, "Hey, hey." I said, Ava and Eli's delivery. Two faces that seemed like they were on springs emerged from behind her. Ava donned a pink tutu over leggings, had wild hair, and had a very serious, for someone wearing a shirt with a big glitter heart on it, look, while Eli was all knees and elbows, with a mop of brown hair and big, curious eyes. As if interrogating a suspect, Eli stared at me and said, "You're Mark." "That's me." I said, "I think you're Eli. You must also be Ava." She stared at me and at the Target bag. "Do you have the unicorn?" she asked, all business. I lifted the sack. "I have an extremely valuable dinosaur shirt and a unicorn." Curious, Eli took a step forward. "Is it a triceratops or something slender like a T-Rex?" I remarked, "Hey, triceratops are cool. But it's a T-Rex, yes." As though I had passed a test, he nodded at me. "All okay. Feel free to come in." Jenna gave me a pathetic smile and said, "The Dinosaur Authority must approve you." "Rules of the house," she said. I went inside. Crayon drawings on the refrigerator, a hint of vanilla candle with mac and cheese, a small but comfortable apartment, and I was very sure the toys in the bins along the wall had once been grouped by category, but now they were in utter chaos. It felt lived in, unlike my spotlessly clean one-bedroom. I sat on the couch while the kids tore into the Target bag, and when Eli saw the outfit, he hooped and held it up like a medal, and when Ava saw the unicorn headband, she gasped and put it on immediately, seeing herself on the blank screen of the TV. "Do I look like a princess?" she said. "Like 10 princesses," I remarked. She ran off, smiling, shouting, "Mom, look, I'm a unicorn princess now." Jenna sat on the edge of the coffee table across from me, watching me with this strange, wary optimism in her eyes. "You're handling this well," she said quietly. I remarked, "I don't know what not well would look like." When I saw the Legos, I ran away. "Some men can be strange," she smiled, "or act as if the kids were going to a job interview in person. You're just being typical." "I'm afraid," I said up front. She raised her head. "You don't appear afraid." I remarked, "I'm very good at hiding it. I've been acting like I understand half of the meetings I attend for years." Her laugh filled the space between us with warmth and familiarity. For a moment, I forgot that we weren't alone. "Would you like to stay for a while?" she asked, referring to their upcoming meal. "Not really elegant. Chicken nuggets and broccoli bribes." I asked, "Broccoli bribery?" "Yes," she said. "They will only consume it if I allow them to dip it in ranch and refer to it as little trees." I smiled and said, "I'm on board." Dinner was strange, boisterous, and chaotic, unlike any meal I had eaten in the past decade. Eli interrogated me on dinosaurs in between bites of chicken, and even though I'd assured Ava 5 times that I liked her unicorn headband, she kept asking. At one point, Eli looked at me gravely and asked, "Are you Mom's friend?" I glanced at Jenna, who gazed straight into my eyes and shrugged, hardly perceptible. "Yes," I said, "I'm friends with your mom." He considered for a moment, then nodded. "All right, don't make her cry, please. Sometimes she cries in the bathroom and thinks we don't know, but we do." Jenna's fork froze halfway to her mouth. The color rose in her cheeks. "Eli," she said fiercely in a whisper. "That isn't. It's all right," I said quietly. I looked at him. "I'm going to do my best, buddy, to keep her from crying." He seemed satisfied with that answer and went back to his nuggets. Jenna's expression was half impressed, half grateful. Later, when the kids were in their room, arguing about what to read before bed, she escorted me to the door. "I am grateful," she said, "for everything for now." "Anytime," I said, and I meant it in a way that was a little scary. After a moment of hesitation, she reached for the handle and said, "I know you were with your father this past weekend. I don't want to take you out of that. From your life." "You're not," I had said. He moved his appointment to Sunday. "Sorting through Mom's stuff is still ongoing." Her face softened. "What are your thoughts on that?" I owe it to him, though, because I was honest when I said, I feel like I want to go right to next week, in addition to her. Well, she whispered, I'll be up if you want to talk after. Besides, I usually stay up until midnight trying to remember what I supposed to bring in my lunchbox. With a smile, I said, I'll probably accept your offer. We stood at the doorway, too close and too far away, and the sounds of the children could be heard coming down the corridor as they quarreled about which stuffed animal should be on whose pillow. I took hold of her hand without any thought, and she assumed I was serious. I told them, You're doing a fantastic job. With everything. With them. Her eyes sparkled a little as she remarked, Some days it doesn't feel like it. Well, from where I stand, it does, I whispered, softly pressing her palm. She stepped closer, and for a moment I thought she was going to kiss me, and my heart pounded my ribs. I took my unicorn. MOM. The moment ended when Ava's voice yelled. My life story, Jenna murmured, releasing my hand and chuckling softly. Let's talk later. Yes, I smiled and said, later. After I'd had dinner with 2 children who weren't mine in an apartment that smelled like crayons and chicken nuggets, it hadn't seemed like a disaster, and as I walked down the stairs, I felt as if my whole universe had moved a little. It had been oddly right. My phone buzzed as I got to my car. I got a text from my dad. Dad, don't forget about Sunday. Additionally, Dad, Aunt Linda called and said, You're seeing someone with kids. Dad, let's talk. Looking at the TV made me feel nauseous. I hadn't told him about that yet. And even though I tried my hardest to keep everything together, my loss, his grief, and this new, fragile bond with Jenna and her kids, I wasn't sure I could. On Sunday, my dad's house seemed smaller than I remembered. The living room wall was lined with boxes, some labeled, some not, and she still had a folded blanket slung across the back of the couch where she read, and the entrance door was stuck as it usually was, and the hallway still smelled faintly of my mom's vanilla candles, even though there was no candle burning. Hey, kiddo, said my dad as he opened the door. Even though he had always been tall and muscular, his shoulders suddenly drooped as if the house were actually resting on his back, and he seemed older than I had seen him before. Hey, I murmured and pulled him into a hug. A drawer full of various rubber bands, pins, and batteries that felt precious despite their incomprehensibility. Albums of photographs, the soft crackle of packing paper, the sound of boxes being opened and objects being moved, and for the first hour, we were silent. In one box, I found a stack of my old t-shirts, some with faded, hard-to-read logos like college and high school, and I hoisted one and laughed. It was a dinosaur shirt. Tiny cartoon tee. Rex's cover it. You wore that until the collar basically gave up. Your mother threatened to burn it repeatedly, my dad said from the doorway. I smiled. I have no idea how to explain it. He looked at me for a long time with a tiny glint in his eyes. He remarked, You know, I was scared too. I was worried that I might break you when your mother told me she was expecting you. I feared that I would destroy everything. I wasn't sure I was prepared. Not even close. I answered, my throat tightening. You did okay. He smiled, a small, sad smile. I made every effort. Your mother went above and beyond. She claimed to be uncomfortable in silence and wanted the house to be constantly noisy. She wanted grandkids so she could spoil them and then send them home when they were too noisy. He gestured to the boxes and said, She used to say? His voice broke and he wiped his throat. She used to say that love rarely shows up the way you expected it to. It just shows up, and you decide whether you have the guts to accept it. I inhaled deeply. Then he added, I keep thinking about that. Are you seeing a parent? That's not my intention. However, you sounded alive when you talked about them, Mark. I'm still talking about the dinosaur outfit. Since before Mom died, your voice hasn't sounded like that. Inside of me, something exploded. I'm terrified, I said again, because that was the most truthful thing I could say. But just because it's not easy, I don't want to flee. He nodded slowly. Then don't, he said. Don't run. Stay and be scared. I tried it with you, and it worked out really well. Tears burned in the back of my eyes, and I took up the dinosaur shirt again and blinked them away. You think Mom would accept? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. With a rush of air, my father said, Your mother, she would have brought those kids in so fast that it would have made your head spin, reading them that dinosaur book you adored as a kid and making unicorn-shaped cookies, he asked. I looked at the bookshelves and saw that the old dinosaur picture book was still there, its spine fading and its cover crumpled. "Take it," he said, following my gaze, "if you'd like. Maybe read it to them sometime." "For her." I nodded, unsure of my speech, and took the book from the shelf with care. Later that night, after driving home and dropping my things on the kitchen table, my phone buzzed. Jenna, how did it turn out? "With your dad?" "Jenna, how are you?" I stared at the screen and then hit call instead of typing. "That quick reaction time indicates that you're either fine or not at all," she said, hearing the second ring. "Somewhere in the middle. We went through mom's stuff. Brought you up. Regarding the kids, oh God." "What did he say?" she groaned. "That love doesn't always show up as you had hoped. He was afraid when he had me. I sound more alive when I talk about you." She remained silent. She said slowly, "Those are good things." I replied, "Yes, they are." There was a silence, and then she exhaled. "Mark, may I be honest?" she said. "Please." She said, "It's starting to feel like more than just late-night texts and Target runs, this thing with you. That's good, but I'm also scared of it because if this doesn't work out, it won't just hurt my heart. It belongs to Eli and Ava, and they take notice more frequently than I would like." My chest tightened as I realized what she was planned. "I meant it then, and I still mean it now. I can't stop thinking about our first date," she added quietly, "how it was going great until I lost it," and said, "I understand if you want to leave because I have 2 kids." Over the phone, I could hear her swallowing. "If you want to go because this is too much," she said, "this is your clean exit. No condemnation. No hostility. I'll tell myself you weren't prepared, and I'll continue. I've had to do that before." I reflected on the events of the last few weeks. I was cautioned by Eli's serious little face not to make his mother cry. Wearing her unicorn helmet, Ava spins about. Jenna laughed in her little kitchen as she cleaned dinosaur-shaped ketchup off the table. Maybe it's just my memory, but I hear my mother's voice. Rarely does love turn out the way you had planned. I took a breath. "I don't want to go," I said. "Mark, I'm afraid," I cut in. "I can't promise that I won't make a mistake. I probably will, but I know what it's like to drive home alone after leaving your place. Now it feels wrong. Too silent. Too bare. I'm not even close to having this resolved. I have no idea how to be a partner to someone who has 2 kids, an ex who lives in Houston, and a full schedule of PDA events." When I spoke, I shuddered, but I didn't care. "I don't want an easy version of this. I want you," I said. "Everything. From under a blanket fort, the Target runs, the small trees broccoli, and the FaceTimes. I want to be like the man who shows up, in spite of the mess, especially when it's haphazard." The only sound emanating from the other end for a long time was breathing. I heard her take a whiff. "You're going to bring me to tears," she remarked. I whispered. "I told Eli that I would try not to, but sometimes I might fail." She laughed through her tears. "That's what he told you, huh?" "Yes," I said. "He also admitted to me that he knows you cry in the restroom, but he believes they are unaware of it." She moaned. "Oh my God. I will never again leave that child alone with anyone." There was a lengthy, quiet silence after we had both stopped laughing, unlike the others, as though anything had stabilized. Finally, she said, "All right. After that, we do this. Slow. Sincere. Don't pretend it's easy." "Agree," I replied. "Come over tomorrow night," she urged. "They have been asking when you're coming over. Eli wants to show you his most recent dinosaur artwork. If you can get back your funny broccoli voice. That's what Ava wants to know." "Who am I?" I asked. "You can't remember? You gave the little trees a voice," she inquired. "She is obsessed." I grinned. "Yeah," I said. "I'll be there." The next night, I sat on the edge of Jenna's small couch with Ava curled up next to me and my mom's dinosaur book open on my lap. Eli sat on the floor, leaning back against his mother's knees, one hand absently tinkering with the hem of her pants. "Read the roaring part again." Ava gestured to the page, and I said, "That's literally every page." "Exactly," she replied solemnly. I did the roaring again. Eli rolled his eyes and pretended he was too old for that, but he smiled when he thought I wasn't looking. Jenna watched us from the other end of the couch, her face soft in the warm yellow lamplight, her hand wrapped around a mug of tea. My heart felt too full and too fragile all at once. I never dreamed of this life. It wasn't neat. It wasn't simple. It came with 2 small individuals who could see straight through me, a Houston ex-boyfriend and a woman who had repeatedly given me an escape route, but yet let me stay. When the kids finally fell asleep in a pile of blankets and stuffed animals, we put them in bed. As we left their room, I left the dinosaur book on the nightstand. Jenna glanced at it, and I whispered, "For her." She understood without my explanation. Back in the main room, she laid her head on my shoulder. She breathed in and out as I wrapped my arm around her. She whispered, "Are you still afraid?" I said, frightened, "But I'm present." She grinned against my shirt. She said, "All right," in a whisper, "because I believe this will be something." I took a quick look at the crayon on the wall, the toys scattered everywhere, and the faint glow of the night light coming from the doorway. "Yes," I said. "Me too."
If you felt good in this story, stay with us, like, subscribe, and join me in the next one. Thank you.